Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna set up my shortcuts real quick here. If you're interested, by the way, some of the ones I think are super important here for when you're like drawing Photoshop, painting, whatever, is the flipping canvas horizontal, you know? Most of you probably know about this, but yeah, this is like trying to get that fresh look on your drawing, right? And over the years, I actually use it like tactically, you know, to draw some parts of the drawing that are hard. Like, let me see if I can. Wait a minute. This is wait. It's no what? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put it here then. Okay, so here in keyboard shortcut. Okay, this is better. Okay, I usually have this on F2, you know. When I'm painting, I like to just have like almost not move like my other hand. Okay, so I want to have all the shortcuts in the same place. Okay, so that's what I put it like on the F2 because it's close to like the other shortcuts I use. You're gonna see. But basically, when you're drawing, like, let me. Come on. Okay. Okay. Before I change everything, I have to do it this way. Here we go. Okay. Some lines are like super hard for me to draw. Like when I'm drawing, yes, the lines that I do, like the curves I draw like in this direction are like very easy for me, you know? Okay, these are like easy to manage. But if I have to do like a curve that is like something like this or like that, it's so hard for me, you know? So many times I just like try to flip the canvas. Like, is it already set up? Wait. Okay, this is kind of slow, so let me set up the shortcuts real quick so I can like explain stuff easier. Then we have tools. Okay, I like to have the lasso tool also next to my hand. Okay, so I moved it to the A key, you know, and also one that is very important and not many people do this. It's decreasing and increasing brush size. Okay, I have this in the Q and W. Okay, like in a shooter game. Okay, so when you see me drawing, I'm gonna be like tick 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 tick, you know, with the keys when I change the size of the brush. And this is mostly like the only changes I do, you know. The lasso tool, because it's like super important to like transform parts of your drawing, make them bigger, smaller, move them around, you know. And just changing the size of the brush quickly. And yeah, I guess just like that, I'm flipping the canvas. Okay, it's working now. Okay. Yes, a bit slow, but it's working. So what I was saying before, some of the lines you draw are like very easy if they go like towards your body. Okay, like it's very easy to do like this movement. Okay, but it's hard to do like curves that go like this. Have you ever noticed that when you're drawing? That's why like many animators have like these sort of like tables that they have like some stuff like this that you can rotate, so some lines become like easier to draw, you know. So it's very important to also like use this tool. I don't know if you guys use this a lot. Like the ones of you who have Procreate have it very easy because you can do like this like super quickly. But in Photoshop, it's like, oh, I gotta press the key to do that, and then, you know, reset the canvas. But I encourage you to do that a lot because it's gonna make it way easier to draw like parts of like sometimes I got the sketch down and I just want to draw like details on the hair or something. So I just start to twist everything, you know? If the sketch is there, you're not gonna like get lost or anything. Okay, so those are like the most important keyboard shortcuts I have. And yesterday we were talking about how to learn properly, you know. There are many things that maybe are like not that necessary, or maybe things you could like save time by not studying them, you know. For example, I get a lot of people asking me about this book. Okay, you asked me about this book yesterday, you know, and it's a great book. Actually, when I finished school, I went to like an art school in Madrid. I was there for like 3 years. It was cool, but I didn't learn like that much, you know, because many of the classes was just like the teachers giving us like oil paintings or something, and they were like, okay, now let's paint a witch, and now let's paint this and that, you know, and they didn't explain that much theory, so I was a bit lost. So what I did was like ask around on the internet, finding like books that people were recommending a lot, you know, and this one usually appeared in many recommendations, right? So what I did when I finished school was like beg my parents like, oh, please can I be like 1 year at home just studying? I promise I'll get a job afterwards, you know? And that's essentially what I did. I was like studying every day. And I remember like turning off the Wi-Fi router every morning, you know, just to not get distracted. I would like just go to a living room with my books that I bought, you know, and just do all the exercises in the book. So it took me, like this book, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like fucking big, you know? It's like very thick, has like very, very dense information. So it's like, I always say this book is like a casual filter, you know? It's like, if you can understand everything and do it, like, okay, you're prepared to understand like how to draw in perspective and everything. But, you know, with the years, I think there's many stuff in this book that we don't necessarily need, especially if we are doing like mostly character designs and stuff. There's like, in many cases, it's more important like to fake the perspective rather than to put it like everything perfect, right? So this book is like very technical, and for characters, let me see some examples here. Let me find an example. Right, so you're probably used to seeing characters presented this way, you know, with like the perspective lines. And what that does, you know, is like the legs. Yeah. I always feel like one of the legs in many characters is like way shorter than the other one, you know? And every time, like when I drew this, I always was like worried, like, wait, this looks weird. Looks like the guy is deformed and one of the legs is like smaller. But it's just like how it works in perspective, you know? I can say the only way you can like get used to this, seeing this sort of stuff is just by like drawing many characters and like being consistent with the perspective. So in the end, this will feel like natural to you, you know? Like this won't feel like, oh, the leg is too short, you know? I see like many Eben Amundsen characters, and he uses like he forces the perspective like so much, you know? You can see some characters which are maybe like this on top. And then here on the bottom, the legs become like so short, you know, because he's like using like 3-point perspective. And you're like, okay, the drawing looks fucking amazing. It has like all the 3-point perspective and stuff. But if I did this myself, I would feel like weird, you know? So yeah, that is very important, like managing perspective when you're constructing characters. Also what we said yesterday, like all the ellipse stuff, you know, let's check in this character, for example. You can see my references here, you know. I actually bought like this Arnold toy that is like very weird. The feeling is like real skin. It's not like plastic. So it's like weird to touch it, you know. I don't know. You feel weird. And it came with like some very unique DLCs. I won't say much. But yeah, in the instructions, they were like, oh, let's make it clear. This is not a sex toy, you know. This is only used for reference. But yeah, pretty good tool to have. Okay, so check this out. Many parts of the armor, you can like see the way I construct when I draw, you know, is usually just trying to convey the illusion of volume and 3D as much as I can, you know, and for that, like one of the things I was told that is like, it resonated a lot, and I think I use it like all the time to construct stuff, is like the ellipses and the curves in perspective, right? That is something like very, very important, because like when you have the horizon line, you know, let's say we got a circle here. You know, when you see it in perspective, it's like almost very, very flat. It's like this ellipse, you know, and when it goes up from the horizon line, you'll see how it begins to become like wider, you know, every time. In the end, this would be almost like a circle, you know, and it's also the same for underneath the horizon line, okay? So this is super important. Like when we are drawing characters, see, these curves I make all the time, I'm like trying to feel the volume, you know? As soon as I build something new, I try to like turn it around, okay? That gives like the illusion of like real volume. And maybe what I do is try to do like the gesture first. I'm sure you guys already know all about like the action lines of the body and stuff. It's very important stuff. But after I do this, I quickly try to block in. See, I just like try to put like the end of this shape just to know how it's supposed to be seen from this angle. Like, what would you say about this figure here? Do you guys think we are like taller than this guy or shorter? Come on, you know it. Taller, right? Because we are seeing the ellipses from top, right? So this is like, we're seeing this from the top. Okay, so it's very important to bear all of this in mind. Look at that. And for example, when we're doing a pose, what I said yesterday when I was putting the example with this character, with this character here, the part where I feel like I failed when drawing this was the character feels like the knees are bent and the guy is like about to fall back, you know? So in order to fix this, I realized that it's super, super important to know exactly like where the center of gravity is, you know? Like if you put the pose yourself, you have to feel what leg the weight is resting on, you know? Like, for example, right now, which one of my legs is like bearing most of the body weight? Like this one, right? I feel like I'm doing a sit-up or something, you know? So if you know that, it's very easy to just like make the character more balanced from the beginning when you're quickly building a pose. Like this, okay. See, when I draw the feet, for example, I start by doing this, just to know like what the volume is gonna be. And wait a minute. It's in F7, okay, yeah. Look, when I draw the feet, actually, I also try to like feel how they should be like placed on the ground, you know? Like, you remember these ellipses? This is what you can do to like set the base for the character, you know, to make it feel like it's resting on the ground, to build it from the ground up, okay? So if you know more or less what the perspective on the ground is gonna look like, it becomes like way easier. You see, and you know, to build the foot, you gotta bear in mind, this is an advice that Lira gave to me, like just make sure the feet don't look like socks, okay? Like they have to feel like they have structure, right? So one thing I realized when designing a character some days ago is that the feet is kind of like a steak, you know? You have like the steak which has like a certain thickness, not too much, but it does have a bit of thickness, okay? And then you can plant like this thing on top, you know, and then you can like harmonize the shape, you know, and just make the gesture line. And it becomes like way easier. I try to see like all the complex objects in like the simplest of forms I can, just to be able to draw them in perspective, you know, with the basic blocks that we all know, you know, like with cylinders. Here, or boxes. You know, mostly like these are the only two structures that I usually use and just modify a little bit, right? But you see that it becomes like way easier to design a foot, for example, if we do it with this principle. Remember the stuff we talked about the wings yesterday? If you want to do like the toes from the feet and everything, it becomes way easier with this ellipse technique, you know, because then to do like the big foot, okay, no, the feet, how do you say, the big toe, yeah, the thumb of the foot, sorry. I can do like a mini ellipse, you know, also put in the same perspective, and I know that the tendons and the bones of the feet come from here, okay, and if I know about perspective, I can know like the knuckle of the feet, I guess, is gonna be over there, and it's gonna be way easier to design like this cylinder connecting both, and then just put like the nail in perspective. There we go. And it's the same for the rest of the fingers, you know, like yesterday, how did we simplify the feathers? You know, we didn't draw like every single feather. I would rather do like this arc over here, like this bit of an ellipse or something, and design like the imaginary like gesture lines for the rest of the fingers. Like this. And I am not even drawing like the contour line of the finger. I'm just drawing like the nails. Because the nails, I can treat them like little boxes in perspective. And if I know what they should look like and how they should be turning around in space, I can then just like feel with the rest of the shape. You see? It's very possible that we don't get to see this finger, by the way. Like one mistake that we usually make is that we know what the parts of the body are. And in every single drawing, we want to show like every single part of the body, you know, even though in many angles, it's not going to be visible, you know. This especially happens with the hands because like there's many parts of the hand that in certain angles you're not going to see, okay? I remember in the Trojan horse event, Kim Jong-gi's boss talked about drawing hands, and he did something that is like very, very useful. Do you guys have like a marker or something I could use? Yes, this is perfect, I think. It's a bit small. Do you have something thicker? Cool. Yes, pentel brush, those are good. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. He did something that I was like, holy shit, this is very true, you know? Like in the hand, you have this division here of planes. You know? So basically, it's like this is going up, and when you reach like the middle of the middle finger here, you start to go down again, you know? Ah, no se ve? Okay. Can you see it, guys? More or less? Like, I know I'm far away from there, but look at that. We also have like this third plane here, you know? So when you're drawing the hand, it's very possible that if you put the hand like this, these two fingers are not even gonna be visible in some poses, okay? So yeah, like if you bear that in mind, it makes it like way easier to draw it. Let me show you a few studies I made. Over here, okay. Oh man, yeah, there's some nasty stuff, so don't look too much, okay? But you can see here that we were like doing studies of the hand, and this came in super handy. Look at the nails of the hand. Like, the perspective also affects them. This is a principle that I discovered starting with my friends when we were like studying hands, and it's like so true. Check it out. Like, this is the thing we realized. When you're drawing the hand, it helps to think that the fingers, like this is a common mistake. We usually think all these fingers are like lined up, you know, and in many poses, especially, you've probably seen this, when you draw a character with the fist like this, it's very easy to make the mistake of doing the thumb here, like twist it like that, or a bit too much like that, you know, and it feels like unnatural, you know. So to fix this, what we realized was that like each finger of the hand is like pointing to an imaginary point here in the center, right? It's like expanding from that point, and in that way, when you know that, you can like start drawing the nails in the correct perspective in order to like make it more believable and make it feel like the hand is like twisting around in space, you know? So like I would, for example, draw this nail here, like more like pointing to the camera, but then the next one in perspective, like, let me draw the ellipse here. Yeah, the arc here. you see, if I draw each nail, like there, pointing in to the center, when they turn around in space, each nail is gonna be like thinner and thinner until you like barely see it, you know? And it makes the hand feel like it's really twisting in space, right? So yeah, that was like super useful for me to learn. All right, this all came from something I was explaining about the poses. Basically, let me move this around. Here. But essentially, when you start to think about where the weight is going here, it becomes very easy to change the pose a bit if you need it. Like the most typical one would be like this, you know, with the other foot coming to here. But you could also like play around with the leg, you know, and make it like a pose where the guy's like with his leg coming here to the front, you know, maybe it's resting somewhere, or even the leg could be like here from behind, right? So it's like very important to try to put the balance in the pose. The first thing, you know, it becomes like way easier then. And notice how it's in F7 here. Something else that really bothered me when I was making this character, and many of you have probably felt the same thing when you're designing like hard surface stuff, you know, and more like perspective intense objects when you're like freehand sketching them. It's like here on the pauldrons, okay, I knew I wanted this character to have like massive pauldrons like the ones you see in World of Warcraft, you know. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, okay, your character is cool only when you finally get the cool pauldrons here, you know. So I tried to put like these massive things here, and I swear I spent like so much time like being super paranoid with the perspective on this, right? Because when I was drawing it, I didn't even understand completely the geometry of this object. You know, I just knew I wanted it to be like a bat wing, but you can build it with like such different geometries, right? So in the end, I realized like after asking my friends, they were like, dude, it looks cool. I mean, yeah, it's a cool vampire. They didn't even notice that the perspective was a bit off, you know? So many of these things are really not that important. You shouldn't like stress too much about like the super proper curves in perspective, you know, that Scott Robertson tells you how to do this, you know, with the planes, tilted planes in perspective, that you have to know how to do like this calculation here to be able to find this point in the other place and everything. Like, I don't know if you guys know this technique, but it's like too mechanical, you know? I think it's way more important to know like how to do good shapes and how they feel volumetric in perspective, you know, like this right here, you know. This feels like way better, I think, you know, like this. Okay, something else that I think is really useful to know is something you can see in parts like here, okay, or in parts like here. I felt this a lot when drawing the medieval knight yesterday in the live drawing, you know. And it's a principle that I've been doing for a long time, but it wasn't until recently that a friend of mine called Thomas Chamberlain, he gave a name to this, and it's like the Pringle technique. I don't know if you guys know how a Pringle looks like. Do you have Pringles in Slovakia? Look at that. Basically, this technique revolves around trying to convey the illusion of depth by showing like both sides of one element, you know, which is like this is the top part of the Pringle and this is the bottom part, but we can see both, you know. And it gives you like very like a 3D impression, you know. When you look at it, you're like, oh shit, I can feel the volume of this object, you know. I'm sure you're gonna find this in nature like a lot, you know. It's not always like this super obvious stuff, like yeah, you're drawing an armor, you know, and you want to show the other part here. Like, let's look at the a pauldron, for example. I was like fascinated yesterday with the light drawing with the night, you know. And there are like many ways of drawing this, you know. It's like this piece of armor comes here, and then you have like different like articulations here to be able to move it, but it's like, which one looks more volumetric, you know? If you show even just a little bit, you know, it feels like it's really curving in space. You know, it's like a small trick that really makes a difference. There's like hidden places where you can find this principle. For example, yes, it was in this thing here. Look at that, up here. In the hand, when you're grabbing an object, for many years I did like the typical fist that looks like this, like the fighting type Pokemon thing, you know, it's just like a fist like that. But in reality, like, think about in the hand how the fingers close, right? They don't all close at the same time. That feels like unnatural. They close like, they start closing with the pinky finger, okay? This is very cool when you draw characters like grabbing objects or having the hand a bit closed. It's very useful to know that this is gonna close first and the others like follow, okay? So when you actually close the fist, it's very cool to show a bit, you know, of the phalanxes. I think it's, you say it like that in English. The phalanxes of the finger of the last fingers here, right? So you can see here that only on the pinky finger and the other one you can see a little bit, and then on the next one a bit less, and then on the middle finger you literally cannot see it, you know? But if you think about it, isn't this like a Pringle as well, you know? You're like seeing one part of the potato chip, you know, and the other part is like hidden. So try to find this thing in nature. I'm sure you will be like, oh shit, and like at some point you're gonna start to see this everywhere, okay? And in the human body, you have it as well. Think about it. Like, if we're drawing like an arm, you guys have probably noticed that the thumb here, you have like these tendons here, you know, they go to this part of the body, and when your arm is like doing this, I don't know how you say this in English, but whatever, there's like this invisible line here going to this part, right? To the elbow here, right? So isn't this also a bit like a Pringle, like when you see this? And it's like turning around in space. You know, it gives a lot of like, if you find if you find this principle, if you try to exaggerate it a bit, you're gonna get like way more volumetric drawings and like more dynamic as well, right? But let's look at some of these characters that I told you yesterday I was trying to do for practice myself, okay? And there were mistakes in them. There were things that I feel like I learned, you know, so let's check some of them. You know, for example, in this character here, one of the things I did the most, maybe some of you already know about this, is like a secret Photoshop technique, you know, where you can go into the layer styles and then activate like the stroke here, okay? And essentially in this layer, when you draw, see, all your lines are gonna have like a stroke outside, right? So this is like super useful, for example, when you got like you got like a shoe, a foot or whatever. Imagine she had like a shoe. I could like very easily here like draw like the shoelaces on top. Wait a minute. You see, for like some overlapping elements, it makes it like way easier to draw, right? And you can see how I use this a lot. For example, yeah, to do like the laces here on the wall. Then I made another layer on top and I did like all the little pins that pinned her to the wall, you know? And I even realized a little trick where I could use that to paint like the highlights of the hair, you know? I think it looked like super cool, you know? So I was like, oh, let's leave it like that, you know? And also, let's go to this one here. What do you think the hardest part of this character was? The chains. The chains are like insane to draw, you know? I spent so many time. I remember I was with Chris in an Italian restaurant and I spent all the meal just trying to figure out how to do the chains because I always did them in like the same way, where I would like it's like, oh, chains are easy, you know? You just have to do this, and then this, and then this. But when you try to do this, these are like 2D chains. These are just like lines. You want them to feel volumetric. You want them to feel like chunky, you know? So what you try to do is put some volume here, but then the chain here cannot fit super well. So you have to draw it like here, and then there's almost like no space for the chain that goes here, and it becomes a bit of a mess, you know? So what I realized is that on the chains, the only part that matters to me is the outside of the chain, okay? What do I mean by that? You can first draw the gesture of the chain, actually, right? And you can draw like these elements. I don't care about the other part of the chain, okay? I'm just doing the outside. This reminds me of stuff like we did in the high school notebooks, you know? We were like doing this little thing here. Okay. I'm sure this is like universal, you know? But yeah, basically, if I can like make the outside of the chain work, This is actually a bit narrow. Let me try to do it like wider. You see, it's very easy now for me to get, like, for example, another brush here and just barely define the back of the chain. You know, and the only part that I need to like really focus on is making the part on the outside feel like volumetric, and the rest your brain will believe it's placed there correctly. There. Okay, so that was like a good finding. Yeah, I remember like for the first time trying to like get serious about designing the shoes, the boots, okay, because I always like don't really care about the feet, and I'm like, okay, let's try to do some like random shoe. You know, you can see in a previous design that I did that I didn't really think about it too much. You know, this is like some like Mongolian like medieval armor style or whatever, and then you see the feet and it's like sneakers. You know, like okay, like I should have done like more research. You know, a quick Pinterest search would have been better, but in this one, I was like, okay, let's try to find some reference. Let's try to combine it. So I found these shoes here on Pinterest, and I just tried to look at them and think, what do I like about each of these pictures, you know? For example, I love the way the two pieces of like leather are put one on top of each other in this one, right? So I think that's something I want on my design. But also something I really like about these other boots here are like these little parts here. I don't even know if there's a name for this, but I thought it looked super cool. So I tried to like put both here in the design. And one thing I really like, and I noticed this in the knight armor, when you have like these belts, little belts on the armor, on the costume, right? And it's like this on top of the shoe. I think it looks pretty cool and also gives a bit of volume, you know? That you can tell like this part is separated here. You can tell there's like multiple layers to the volume here. When you see an armor, it's insane the number of overlaps that happen, right? And that gives a lot of like the sensation of volume, you know? So I think it looks pretty good. Let me see. Okay, so one thing I talked about yesterday, you know, was like trying to simplify the anatomy to make it easier to sketch characters, right? So what I showed yesterday was a little toy I brought. You know, I have many at home. Should be around here. Where is he hiding now? Yeah, he's nowhere to be seen. Come on, man. Okay, anyways. This is a picture of one of the ones I have, okay? So look how complex these diagrams are, you know? one thing I noticed when I was studying anatomy, and I had like some, Loomis books, Michael Hampton, I was drawing the figures to learn how to like draw the anatomy. But then when I tried to do it from imagination, many of my figures were always like this, like standing like this. It was very hard to put like a cool pose. So I would rather play with toys because it's very intuitive for me to just pose the toy in a very dynamic pose and just imagine what he's doing, and then just try to sketch it real quick, feeling the gesture, the perspective. See how the ellipses are turning here in space. This is very easy that this is very important that like how this looked like. Like many times what I did in the past was, maybe I would do this with the ellipse and it would look like weird, So when you have a toy, it's like very intuitive because the arm is not like with all the articulations and the muscles connected. It's just like different separated parts. So it's very easy to see how they end in perspective, It makes it easier and you will get like used to doing it and thinking about it when you're then sketching from imagination. So yeah, basically it became way easier to do like a mannequin, the quick mannequin, and then sketch everything else on top, Like the clothing, the hair, the wind, a cape always, and a sword, right? Same with this robot. This one was actually designed by Kim Jung-gi. It's a super cool toy. And yeah, I could like sketch this toy here and then like try to turn it into like a super giga chat guy, with all the muscles and everything. It makes for great practice. You see, I put here like this anatomy for me is like very hard to remember, like all the names of the muscles and everything. But when I play with the toy, it's very easy to remember things like I don't know if you guys get this, but the other day I was looking like a picture of a Bionicle toy, Do you guys have those? And it was so weird because when I saw the picture, I could remember like how it felt touching the weapon of the Bionicle, It's like a sort of memory that stuck with me way more than just remember the flexor digitorums, Like that's something I cannot relate to too much, So when I draw, I always try to like feel like I'm, even I want to feel like I'm as close to the character, like I could even like smell it, or like touch the surface of the body or whatever, It makes it like way easier for me to know how to draw the shapes of the body and what they should look like, Oh, this is my friend Bake here. Yeah, he's sitting right there. I remember going going on an excursion, going hiking, and I took some cool pictures, and I realized something. Like we usually draw like characters very 2D, Like we don't use perspective as much. So when I was taking the pictures, I noticed how the lens of the camera actually deforms the proportions of the body, This is something we are not used to seeing, so it feels weird when we are like, dude, this arm is like so short compared to the other. This feels wrong, But then it looks so good. Look at that. This is the picture I took. Okay, here is back in the middle of the countryside, and look at this. The size of this hand, compare it to this. It's like, it feels wrong, And like, or this arm is so long and this one is so short. And I was like, there's like less than a meter from one arm to the other. But that's what it looks like on the picture, right? So applying a bit of perspective actually makes it like more dynamic, more interesting, It's pretty cool to play with this. If you guys wanna get used to these type of things, I recommend that you check this website. You probably already have heard of it. It's called Postmaniacs. And you can like grab any pose. It has this one tool that I think is very important. It's the what the fuck? Okay, maybe a more normal pose, please. Something like that. Okay. If you play with this setting here, you actually, there. You can get to see how the parts of the body become like more deformed and get closer to the camera. Look at that. Like if I turn this in space, wait, like this, or wait, rather, let's do it like this. You'll see. Look, it's like super elongated. It's so strange. So strange. But when you do it enough, you're like, okay, so basically it's the things that are closer to the camera that become like super deformed. And the things that are like here in like this distance, they don't get too deformed, you know? It's just like things that are which are like way closer or like very far away, right? So after like getting a bit more used to this, I could like start sketching. I tried to like do an exercise where I would like sketch, trying to use like deforming the lens a bit more, right? So for example, look at how this guy, I could finally draw this hand way bigger than this one and actually way bigger than this one resting on the table or this one. And it felt natural, you know? So yeah, try to put a bit more like forced perspective in your sketches. You'll see how it makes the whole scene more dynamic, right? I love these sort of shots that they feel like they were recorded with like a GoPro or something. You guys have probably seen this in like Alberto Mielgo's movies. You know, he uses like weird camera shots and angles, and many times you can see how they deform like the proportions and everything, and I think it looks pretty good. So yeah, with that in mind, I could like start sketching freehand all this. I didn't use even like a perspective grid or anything, but still looks very believable, you know? I got used to like changing the proportions of hands or different limbs or whatever according to the distance, you know? You can see here how Kim Jong-gi does this like a lot, right? I remember in the THU, he started sketching like a unicorn, okay, like this massive drawing of a unicorn, and he started like drawing the head only, and then like the leg of the horse, you know, like this. And I was like, I'm not really liking it that much, you know? But then he took and he sketched like the back leg, like way back and smaller, you know? And I was like, wait a minute, the perspective here is actually fucking crazy. Like, how did he plan this, you know, without a sketch or anything, right? And he was like very close to the wall and the drawing was massive. It was super impressive how he could control this, you know? See. Something else that I think it's important to bear in mind here, I actually realized this while working on this first piece. Is that we tend to draw in perspective parts of the anatomy, but then when we switch to other elements, our brain goes back to thinking in 2D. It's kind of weird. For example, you may have this character and you want to put like some special effects or something on the eyes or on the whatever, like put some special effects, okay? They can look cool, but what about trying to push it more? Like, what if these special effects also worked in 3D and they were affected by perspective, right? For example, down here, I wanted to do like this spell she's casting, you know, like reviving these dead bodies or whatever. And at first I was like doing like a 2D shape for the effect, like, oh, I'll just include like some magical fog or something. But then I was like, wait a minute, what if I take this and try to like apply the same principle we were talking about, the Pringle here, okay? And you can see how this turns around in space, okay? So it's like a special effect, but it's also like working in 3D and in perspective, you know? It's actually looks way cooler, I think. And the same goes with the hair. Like when people do hair, she's bald, so maybe I can paint some hair here. Okay, really quick. For the hair, okay. When I see many people drawing hair, they just like switch to default mode and then they do like the hair like this or whatever, like going from here. Start to think about it in 3D as well. Like it's very cool when you design the hair, the way we designed the wings of the bird yesterday, for example, like you have to think how the hair would fall in here, but also around the back of her head, okay? This is working in perspective. So try to group the chunks of hair, okay? Maybe there's like an overlap. And the little end of the hair maybe goes around in perspective, you know, when you're doing this sort of thing. You can see this super well in this drawing by Kenneth Kushart. You guys probably know about him. How the fuck do I search for this? Maybe? Oh, maybe here. This one, can't believe I found this so easily. Look at the hair of this girl. It's like every single strand of hair is so properly placed in perspective, right? Look how it comes here towards the camera. Or here in the back. You know, how it goes here to the side and here moves on the other direction, right? This really like makes it feel like way more believable. I feel like it's like an anime figurine. One of these you can buy, you know, and the hair is made of plastic and it has like this super cool shape design. So, yeah. I think with perspective, hair looks way better. Apparently, we have only like some minutes left, so I guess if you guys have any questions or something you would like me to explain, draw, whatever, yeah?
I can bring the microphone over to you.
Thank you. So I would like to ask about the work and life. Like, how do you manage your studies? As you were saying with the Scott Robertson, what do you think is like a healthy balance in between studying and doing other things?
Yeah, I guess like every single day I try to do like a sort of like fan art or character for myself. And I try to relate it to something I'm learning that week, maybe. 1 week I may be obsessed with like wings and how to draw them. The next week, maybe I'm obsessed with like hair, for example, or hands or some part of the body. So I try to do like my own fine arts and stuff in a way that I can practice those things, right? Then it becomes more fun, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the way I think is like the healthy way, because otherwise you feel like you're studying for an exam or something and you really won't remember the stuff that you're studying, you know, if you don't apply it. So try to make it in a way that it helps your personal work look cooler, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Everyone being shy, or are we good?
Come on,
Okay.
guys.
Well, I mean, if nobody has any further questions, then I'd invite us all to just say thank you to Mike Jordana for his talk.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.